Welcome to the Green Margin Podcast, where we talk about the financial and operational realities of running a cannabis business. I'm Daniel Sabet, and today we're talking about what it takes to open and grow a successful dispensary in one of the newest and most competitive cannabis markets in the country, New York. Many people think that once you receive a license and open your doors, customers will automatically come. But the reality is that building a successful dispensary takes strategic planning, operational discipline, and the ability to adapt to a constantly evolving market. Today, we're going to discuss what that journey has looked like from someone who's living it every day. Joining me today is Ryan LoGiudici, owner of Up the River Dispensary in New York. Ryan has been operating for nearly a year, and what's impressive is that the business has experienced sales growth every single month since opening, something that every operator hopes to achieve in a competitive market. We'll talk about how he got into the cannabis industry, the challenges of opening a dispensary, and what he's learned during his first year of business. Ryan, thanks for joining me today.
A pleasure, Daniel. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Let's start from the beginning. Everyone has a story about how they entered the cannabis industry. What attracted you about this business, and what made you decide to open a dispensary?
Yeah, my story is I grew up in New York. I had my cannabis activities while in New York, which we won't go into too much detail of, but eventually I went to college, and after college I had a decision to make. I was looking at some office jobs basically in Chicago, New York, and then I knew someone close to me who had a cannabis farm in Northern California. So, I think we can all tell which way that decision went. I worked for a season out on the farm and I loved it. I'd always loved the plant, what it had done for me, what it did for other people, the social aspect of it. And I really said to myself, man, I want to make a legitimate career out of this. From there, I moved to Denver. I got an hourly job doing manufacturing in a concentrate lab, hourly packager. And then from there, it really just blossomed. I met a gentleman who was starting a company in California. I moved out to Humboldt and became the head of production for a pretty large topical wellness cannabis company in Humboldt for 5 years. Learned a bunch of manufacturing, compliance, distribution angles in the California market when it was just becoming recreational. I then moved to LA around COVID times, moved on from that company and continued my journey in the industry. Ran compliance for a grow in LA. I did sourcing for another company with some of the contacts I made up in Humboldt. But I always wanted to bring something back to New York. It's where I'm from. It's always going to be home. And I just couldn't wait for legality to come to the East Coast. So I worked in a few other states also, consulting for a few groups, Massachusetts, Michigan, Arizona, New Jersey. And then I did a little work in New York as a consultant. And I kind of said it was time. So I just put my hat in the ring. I knew they were offering licenses. They had opened it up, I guess, outside of the C group, the people disproportionately affected by the war on drugs. So I felt like it was the time to do it. I found a location close to where I grew up that absolutely worked and that I was really excited about. And from there, just played the waiting game on getting a license.
Well, that's quite a story. I didn't realize you were in so many different states over this period of time, and also all these different verticals besides just the retail. So yeah, you definitely have the experience, and I feel like that experience probably helps you in the retail space, just knowing how the other verticals work and how they operate. Probably better for negotiating prices and just understanding their process if things get delayed. That's a good foundation to have for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I consider the experience that I had before this invaluable. I feel like this is really my first foray into the real retail side of things. Not to say I haven't worked closely with retailers over the decade that I've been in the legal industry, but those experiences on the other side, I guess you could say, really helps me a lot in making decisions for the retail side of the business who I want to work with. And I think I have a different understanding than some other operators on the retail side. So it's been good.
Yeah, definitely. And looking back now, did this process turn out to be what you expected, or were there some surprises along the way?
Yes and no. I didn't know what to expect in terms of licensing. The way New York did it, they ran a lottery system in terms of who would get licensed, when you would get licensed. I always had this maybe naive hope that I would get a license. For a while. We didn't know which way they were going to go. It sounded like they were only going to give 50 licenses to our group, and then eventually they opened it up to the whole group, and you just had to wait and be prepared. So I would say I just never lost faith in the way things would go, even though I'd certainly had my moments of doubt. But I felt well prepared again in dealing with compliance in many other states. I know how this whole process goes in terms of starting a cannabis venture, whether it be manufacturing, retail, whatever. And especially if it's new in a state, there's a lot of hurdles to get over. And it's never just a smooth line trajectory upwards. So a lot of peaks and
Yeah,
valleys, I could say.
absolutely. Yeah, if it was a smooth line, everyone would be doing it, and there'd be just way too much competition. You got to go through all
Exactly.
those different hurdles in order to make it and then to succeed. So yeah, I could see, I can understand that very well. Well, that's great. And now you've been operating for almost a year, and you've seen your sales increase month over month. What do you think attributes to that growth? Do you think it's marketing, maybe some customer service, your product selection, or a combination of everything?
I truly believe it's a combination of everything. It is tough to attribute in a scientific model, oh, this is what's driving our growth. There's a lot of variables there, but we try to focus a little bit on each, just on the three you touched on. Marketing, we've done a number of different approaches for how we want to get the word out to people. We were the first dispensary in the municipality that we opened in, which I think was a huge factor in terms of it was a new thing for people. I'm a hometown guy. Grew up 5 minutes from where my store is, so that really had an angle for people. And then we tried a bunch of different things. We run a commercial now. We've sent flyers door to door, and really recently we've tried to get in front of some local events. Obviously, the state just allowed a way to sell at some events, but it's very new. I don't think anyone's doing it yet. But still, we're having a presence at different local concerts, farmers markets, that kind of thing. Really just getting the word out, passing some flyers out for coupons, that kind of thing. And I think those things do make a difference. You might not see it right away, but those people eventually come around. And then if you can back it up with a good team that provides good customer service and a good selection of products, I think it speaks to people. And then ultimately, I think convenience is a huge factor too. There are the people that like to try out new dispensaries or shop specifically for deals. You can't expect to retain everyone that walks through your door, but if you can hit on those, have a presence, I believe in having a solid brand behind the store too. My name is very focused on the local area. So I want locals to attribute shopping there as a local experience and a menu that reflects a choice for everyone. I think that goes a long way. So it's a lot of factors for sure.
Definitely. And now that you're operating every day, what are some of the biggest pain points of running a dispensary?
Whew, it's a long list for sure. One, you got to choose your menu wisely, I believe. There's so many manufacturers in New York. I have multiple people every day coming in trying to put their products on my shelves. If you said yes to everyone, you would have product expiring. There would be, I believe, too many options is almost it's tough for me as the operator to then pay my bills on time, and then tough for a consumer to make a decision in the store. If they're presented with too many options, it almost gets overwhelming. So I think certainly curating a menu that reflects quality and locality too is definitely been a pain point, but it's been one that I've enjoyed figuring out. Aside from that, obviously just the expenses that come with running a cannabis dispensary. I think it might be a little too late for some, but choosing your location wisely, I try to keep my overhead as lean as possible. I have a pretty small team for a store that's open 13 hours, 7 days a week. I try to keep my payroll low, keep my rent low, because those are the things I can control. As we both know, the taxes in our industry right now are extraordinarily high. So, in factoring that in, I tried to really be conscious about what costs I could control and picking a location that my build out wasn't this incredible expense. I don't have a superstore by any stretch of the imagination. And that certainly works for some. And when it works, it's extremely successful. But I also know there's some other operators who I'm sure are having a rent bill due and have a very large team. And it can definitely get stressful, even with how I'm operating. It's something to consider.
Yeah, I've seen it time and time again. This expensive build outs, a lot of infrastructure, and just the ROI is not always there. And then it's always a good practice, especially when you first open, to keep it as lean as you can and then scale from there. As you see things are growing, you need to upgrade certain things, do it at that time, but not from the start. It's like you said, from the start, it's about good customer service, a little bit of good advertising, and then just having that location and having that brand. I think those are the keys from what I've seen, especially for people who just opened.
Couldn't agree more.
Very good. And I guess I wanted to get more of your take on what you feel makes a successful dispensary. From your perspective, what do you think separates a successful dispensary from one that struggles? And what do you think customers value most when they choose where to shop?
I know a lot of people want to, I feel like as we move further along in the maturity of the New York market, again, a lot of people are looking for kind of a boutique experience. They want to feel like they're cared for when they're shopping at a store, that the store is unique. I think moving away from the Apple Store model of a store makes a lot of sense. And then convenience as well. People are on their way home from work at the same time. They want to get in and out. You got to be able to play to each customer that walks in the door. Some people are beginners. They want to sit there and ask 10 questions about what product's right for them. That's totally fine. That's what the bud tenders are there for. Some people want to walk up to the kiosk on the wall, type in exactly what they need and get in and out in 2 minutes. And you got to have a store that kind of works for both. At the end of the day, I believe in having a done up liquor store essentially, because obviously there's no consumption in the store. It's not a bar. People don't hang out and consume there. So I want to tailor it. I made the inside of my store look nice, unique. I believe it's done very well. I've had a lot of comments on how people really enjoyed the interior of my store. I've hired local people who can talk to the consumers coming in. So I think that's all huge. And again, just being a local presence. Like I said, we're sponsoring a large concert series right on the Hudson River. It's basically across the street from my store, but we laid out the spend to be the presenting sponsor of that. So people see that name, people associate us with the local goings on and see that we care about this local community. We want to be a part of it. And I think at the end of the day, that's what's going to matter a lot because eventually I think those people shopping around, it's going to be less and less. They're going to go for convenience. They're going to go where they're familiar. And at that point, it's about retention. And retention's definitely a tough part of this game for sure.
Yeah, people are definitely creatures of habit. So once they get comfortable somewhere, they just want to keep going to the same place. They know what they're getting. Do you feel like education also has a factor? Does your customer base want to be educated, and do the bartenders have the knowledge to coach them on which products are good for them based on if they want to go to sleep, or if they want to have high energy, or if they have a headache and things of that nature?
I think this is something I've heard time and time again in the different states and the years I've worked in this industry is education is key. And I do believe that, especially with the way cannabis is now. We have CBN, CBD, CBC, CBG. These all are minor cannabinoids that affect the experience of the user. So people want to know what products they're looking for. It's a very dense kind of language that we speak to explain these things. So the messaging around education, some people I talk to, they really enjoy it. They understand and they feel confident in making selections after. Some people, it's like we're speaking another language and they just say, oh, so this one is good for sleep after you give a whole explanation. At that point, I think the brands are a big lift in terms of education. I think we face the customer every day and we can certainly explain to them, but the brands know their product inside and out, what they're doing to make their product have those effects. So when we have brand pop-ups, sometimes that's when I see some of the most valuable education going on. But certainly my staff they've been great about learning about what makes products do what they do and being able to disseminate that information down to the consumer. It's valuable because it does, once someone has an experience with a product that works for them and gives them the desired effect they're looking for, and they got that recommendation from you or one of your staff, I think that creates that comfortability that leads to follow-up visits.
Yeah, and it creates an energy. When you're teaching them stuff, they get motivated. They want to come back more. They want to learn more. If a different situation comes up, they feel like you guys are their go-to people, right? It's, hey, I'm gonna go to Ryan and up the river, and he's gonna teach me this, or his lead bud tender is gonna teach me what I need to learn to have a good experience. So yeah,
Yep.
I've heard that time and time again from other operators. So I'm happy that you guys are also implementing that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's especially for a municipality that hasn't had a store. The hardcore and daily users have sought out other shops, obviously, but then the people who are just curious or want to go into the local store, I think it's an invaluable tool to keep them coming back.
Yep. And let's talk about your role in the business, because obviously, as an owner, you got to balance a lot of responsibilities. How do you prioritize your time between everything, with as far as operations, financing, all the staffing, and then just the growth initiatives, wanting to open a new store or expand on your current store?
Sure. I've always been someone who just works in a frantic pace. I don't necessarily have this set schedule for my days where it's 10 a.m. I'm doing finance stuff for an hour. I put out fires where I can, and that's always been my experience in the cannabis industry. So I guess it's like a learned behavior, if you will. We wear a lot of hats in this industry, whether you're an entry level employee all the way up to owning a business. I think everyone along that line is asked to do things that fall outside of their job description or just multiple things at once. And so that's kind of how I attack my day. I like the way I do it. It definitely feels frantic, but I believe that it creates a more hands on effect for me too. I certainly help in the store, even. I'll run the register sometimes if a bud tender has to go out for lunch, whatever. I certainly try to get in front of the customers. I think that they value speaking to the owner of the business more than a bud tender too sometimes. I'm helping with transaction issues, that kind of thing. At the same time, I'm intaking product, I'm pulling orders. And then, yeah, I guess I'm organized enough to know I need to pay bills today. I need to look at my finances today. I need to hire. I'm looking at expanding. It's time to start putting more hours into searching for this place or doing this on that front. So it's a balancing act. I've just lived it for the last decade. So I guess it's normal to me. I'm sure some people would feel like it's way too unorganized for them. To each their own, I guess.
Yeah. It sounds like you can handle the pressure. It's just creature of habit. It works out for you. So that's
Yeah.
great. If someone called you tomorrow and said they wanted to open a dispensary, what's the first piece of advice you'd give them? And what's one lesson you've learned you wish you knew before you started?
First piece of advice would certainly be, like I said before, choose your location wisely. Choose your location wisely, choose your game plan and your model carefully. As we all know, it's starting to happen in New York, but like price compression is a real thing in this industry and it's happening and it's going to continue to happen. We've seen it happen in some of these more mature markets, really to a point where some operators unfortunately have to go out of business because all of a sudden the product you were selling or that you were selling for 3 times the amount is worth a third of what it was worth in a year. You have to sell 3 times as more products to keep up what you were doing a year ago. It's tough. And again, that's where controlling the costs you can control come into play. Your rent, your overhead, your build out. You really have to think in a long term, what is this market going to do and what can I do to protect myself against that? Something I wish I did differently. I guess there's nothing that certainly sticks out like, oh man, I really messed this one up. I got to go back to the drawing board here. But I guess in terms of building the menu, finding ways to get over keystone for certain products when I first opened. I wasn't as sharp as I was right now at doing that. I certainly don't want to be in a race to the bottom. That's what we should all want to avoid. And there's certainly some operators on both sides, manufacturers and retailers, who seem to be playing that way. And I don't think they realize the harm it's causing themselves. So a lot of these brands, New York opened up kind of the way they can offer deals and stuff like that to the stores. And that's been huge. So it's just about finding the right ones where you can get a little bit more. You don't want to be greedy, certainly. You don't want to be priced in a way that's going to turn people off from shopping with you or be like, wow, this product was so much cheaper at this other store I went to. But there is ways to work with the right people and find ways to get yourself a break so that you can protect against that price compression that's coming.
Yeah. Yeah, once those people get turned off, it's so much harder to bring them back. The price is too high at one point, and then it's hard to fix it right after the fact. So it's like you gotta have your ducks in a row and just know what you're doing there.
Yep.
Okay. Ryan, before we wrap up, let's look into the future a little bit. What do you think will ultimately separate the dispensaries that thrive over the next 5 years from those that struggle?
Yeah, I hate to sound like a broken record, but again, the ones that are looking long term at where this industry is going and planning how they can weather that storm of price compression, of costs, I think those are the ones that's going to survive. At the same time, it's that combined with, like I said, being your local shop. I think the people that live in your area, you want to be the place they think of as that's the premier dispensary in this area. They're involved in the community. They're warm and welcoming when I come in. They certainly have deals that I feel like I'm getting a good deal when I go there. I'm paying in line. I think a good loyalty program certainly helps with that. So the people that are focused on customer retention as well as planning for what's going to happen in this industry in the next couple of years. And at the same time, more and more stores are going to be opening. They're certainly not done issuing licenses or stores opening. If you look at the Office of Cannabis Management, like local map in New York, there's a ton of yellow dots on there that's a pending license, or a ton of issued licenses that are not yet operational. So long gone are the days where you are the absolute first dispensary in the area and no one's around for an hour drive. I think that certainly made it seem to a lot of people like, oh, you open a dispensary, you're rich in a month. That is not the game, and that's never been the game in cannabis. A lot of people have a get rich quick mentality, and that is certainly something you want to avoid because it's not the truth as the way the laws sit, the way the industry goes. You got to have this long term approach and look at what these other markets have done because every state's different, but in a lot of ways, things have been set up the same and they're going to follow the same trends.
Yeah, great insights. Ryan, thanks so much for joining me today. And thank you to everyone tuning into the Green Margin podcast. We'll see you next time.